Hello and welcome to the Rest is Football with Alan Shearer, Micah Richards and me, Gary Lineker.
I thought the game was interesting tactically at times, and I thought it had really good energy in the first half, and it sort of petered out in the second half a little bit.
Do you think that was a little bit down to Gabriel being injured and therefore Arsenal played a little bit more cautiously?
Yes, and we've talked about Arsenal playing cautiously before, especially when they go ahead. But I have no problem with Arsenal doing that today because up against a good Liverpool side, I thought they got a little bit caught out for the goal. They sort of pressed quite high, didn't they? And it's the only time Liverpool really looked like getting in behind them. But losing Gabriel was massive to any team. I know there's been a few comments after the game with players saying, well, Liverpool have got injuries too. But I think when you don't have Calafiori, when you don't have Saliba, when Gabriel gets injured and you don't have the creative genius of Odegaard, who's been out for a while now, they are four major players for Arsenal. And I think it did in the end sort of hamper Arsenal's chances of going on and winning it.
They were the better team, Arsenal, I thought, first half. But I thought Liverpool came back into it a bit better second half when he made a couple of changes. And I don't think either team did enough to win the game, and I thought a draw was a fair result in the end.
I agree with you that Arsenal, I thought, edged it in the first half. I thought Saka was sensational.
Oh, he was unbelievable.
He's such a good player. He really is. We've said it a million times, but I think it warrants mentioning it again. I mean, he's so talented, so he can go both ways. He's like incredibly strong as well as intelligent. So it's a hell of a mix, isn't it?
Dave Robertson a torrid time, didn't he, in that, particularly first half.
I think it's just his consistency as well, guys. You know, we talk about wingers, and normally wingers can be very frustrating. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago about the defensive work he does for the team, but then when he gets the ball, he's always looking to create something. He really is a top winger now. He's got to be the best winger in the league along with Salah, surely.
Yeah, I mean, there are some good ones, aren't there? And obviously the wingers role, it's slightly different to how wingers used to play when we played out, wasn't it? When they were it was more 4-4-2 and they were half midfield players, half wingers. And but nowadays with three up top, they cut in and they come in and score more goals than probably any wingers that used to do in our generation. The winners of today's game were possibly Manchester City in a way.
They just find a way, and I've said it many times with Man City. I think a lot of people look at Man City, think they're going to blow everyone away. Pep was really impressed with the way they played and the setup. I think he was giving more credit to Southampton in how they played, but they just find a way to win, and that's what great teams do, you know. And I think it was nice to see Matheus Nunes as well get some minutes under his belt, just because he comes from Wolves, really top player, and then find himself out the team, and then it can be very difficult. So yeah, they're just sort of going along nicely.
I suppose Liverpool once again showed that they're definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with this season, aren't they? I mean, I know Arsenal edged it in the first half, but he shifted things again. He pushed Trent more into midfield, didn't he, in the second half when they were trailing anyway. That kind of made a difference, and he obviously a fantastic pass from Trent that kind of led to the goal.
Everyone has said, or so many people have said, the last sort of three games they've played Chelsea, Leipzig, and Arsenal, and they've all said, "Well, this is their test. You'll see whether they're about to be title contenders or whatever it is." Well, I think they've come through with flying colours, and they've got options. They've got options in midfield. They've got options up front. I suppose the only two I think they would perhaps struggle without would be the two centre-halves and Konate and Van Dijk. I think they would struggle to replace those two because they've started the season really, really well. But I think we've seen enough from Liverpool now this season to know that they're going to be in the shout.
I suppose in some ways it's not just seeing Liverpool, it's seeing how the manager handles things post-Klopp, which we've also mentioned numerously, but he's got a calmness about him, hasn't he? He just seems to be in control. He makes the decisions. He brings people on, changes the game in certain ways, tactically as well, Micah.
Yeah, I think tactically we've talked about the slower pace. I think they need credit for the set pieces. I thought Liverpool were, especially today, really utilising what they have in Van Dijk and Konate. It was really clever against Arsenal today, the way they sort of worked it, and there was a flick on at the near post. Van Dijk goes for the second ball. I just enjoy everything that he's brought to Liverpool. He's not tried to be Klopp. And to replace someone like Klopp was always going to be so difficult. And he sort of dealt with all that side of things very well and just said, this is my way. Yes, it's a slower tempo. Yes, we've got good enough players to challenge. And I think he's come out this period, very well. I agree with Alan on that. It's just whether they can sustain it now. I think playing, Curtis Jones a little bit further forward today didn't probably work in the way he wanted it to. But like Alan's correct in terms of they can change the midfield. They can change it. And that's, credit to him and the players buying into what he wants to do.
Do you think Arsenal have got the strength in depth, perhaps, of the other two?
Well, they've got a big enough squad. I mean, having said that, when you're missing your best centre-half, when you're missing probably your most creative player, they've had to do without Saka for a couple of games. I think they're all right, and maybe in a centre-forward position, but Havertz has had a really good start to the season. When he's not in there, I'd perhaps think, okay. But in other positions, they're reasonably strong, that even today when they've got 2 or 3 out, still had a strong team to put out.
I would agree with that. I think as well it's how adaptable Arsenal are. You see Partey playing right back, Timber playing left back, and without key players, they still managed to find a way to rub it. If they want to go in a low block, if they want to counter-attack and still cause problems. And people sort of question their mentality in terms of how they want to play. But I always give a manager credit for being able to adapt to what the game needs. And I think Arteta did that really well. I think just frustrating for him, you bring in Jesus as this striker, winger, whatever you want to call him, forward, and he's not contributing enough in terms of goal threat. So I do agree with Alan in terms of just maybe another forward, just to help him out and relieve some of that pressure off Havertz.
Do you think either of them can challenge Manchester City? They've not been their exhilarating best this season. I mean, they have in some games, but like Micah said, they kind of they win. They still win. They just...
Yeah, they've conceded first a few times as well, haven't they, Manchester City? But they've been around the block. They know how it works now. They know how to find a way to win. That will be the hard thing for Liverpool and for Arsenal. But I don't think there'd be too much disappointment from both Arteta and from Arne Slot the way both teams have started.
I would agree. Let's move on to Chelsea. They continued their impressive start, beating Newcastle. Sorry to mention it, Alan.
Well, I mean, Palmer's a difference, isn't he? What incredible!
That pass.
The pass was like sublime. Right? It was like put on a plate. Neto did incredibly well to get past Fabian Schär, and then he put it on a plate for Jackson in the middle. I mean, terrible defender from Newcastle opened him up with ease. I mean, how many times are we going to see it? He just looks like he's playing in the park with his pals. It was like he's just an incredible player, yeah. He got his goal as well, which again, you look at defensively from Newcastle, but he's just a super talent, isn't he?
Were Newcastle trying to go man-to-man today, Alan? Because I'm going to do a bit of analysis a little bit later on, and it seemed as though it was in that 4-3-3 sort of shape. And what Chelsea did really well at times is use Sanchez as and sort of create that free and then wait for Newcastle to engage and then just play around them. Gusto was playing further up at times like a number 10, and then it left this big gaping hole in midfield for Cole Palmer basically just to get on it and do whatever he wants. I know we should be giving a lot of credit to Palmer, but it's the way Maresca has set up his team for Palmer to get on the ball to then do, what he does so well.
I mean, that pass, the vision and awareness, as well as the weight of pass, it was, I hate to say this, but it was almost Messi-esque in the fact it's one of those things. How did he see that pass? I mean, what a talent. I mean, It really was.
Well, you know, with the pace that Neto's got, that if he puts it into the space, then he's got a chance of getting on the end of it. And he did really well put on a plate for Jackson in the middle. It's a great goal from their point of view.
Yeah. What would you like to see more from Newcastle? What's missing?
Better all over the park, better defensively, more creativity in midfield, and they certainly need more goals. I mean, Isak got his goal today. He should have had another one with a chance that he created. But I look at Newcastle and I think, okay, what got them to where they were in terms of Champions League? It was their high press, it was their energy, it was their goals, it was how mean they were, how nasty they were. Not seeing too much of that, certainly not enough of anywhere near enough of it this season. And they've got a tough run now. They've got Chelsea in the Carabao on Wednesday, and then they've got Arsenal at home next Saturday. So it's tough times for them at the minute.
Yeah, they had a similar spell last season, didn't they, where they dipped off but then finished the season pretty strongly. So he needs to turn things around. I mean, I don't suspect he's under any real pressure. I wouldn't have thought. Do you?
Well, I've said it before, haven't I, about all the upheaval at the football club with what's gone on. New sporting director, the two shareholders leaving, Amanda and Ahmedad, Darren Eales, the chief executive, now leaving. Hardly a player coming in, which Eddie wanted during the summer. So it's all been very messy for Newcastle the last sort of 3 or 4 months, and they have to get back to what got them to that Champions League spot in the first place, you know, the energy and the drive and being horrible to play against. I don't see too much of it.
It reminds me a little bit, I mean, it's different, but of when Brendan Rodgers was in Leicester the last season, that he'd gone to the club and said, I need backing and support and, 1 or 2 more players. He didn't get it. And then ultimately it's the manager that takes the blame for it all, isn't it? When it doesn't quite work out. But that's been forever the case.
And that's the nature of the business, exactly. Yeah. We've always been saying, we're crying out that, why don't we see more sporting directors come out and talk rather than they've been on the coach or the manager all the time?
Absolutely. But Maresca's doing a good job. I mean, we all looked at it and we thought this is, going to be really difficult coming in there. The amount of players they've got. I know it's better to have lots of really good players than no players, but when he's come into a club in, a bit of turmoil in some ways. Apparently the owners had fallen out and that kind of stuff. But I think he's handled it really well, and he's bringing out the best. He seems to know what his team is. He seems ruthless enough to be able to deal with certain situations. I've been very impressed, as I was last season with Leicester.
Yeah, he's a class act, isn't he? I think it did help that Chelsea were doing quite well towards the end of last season under Poch. You started to see who was ready for the fight, and he's just enhanced that with what he's trying to do. But it's not easy, like you say, Gaz. I mean, with all the off-field problems, to just stick to coaching and getting your team to play in the right way can be difficult. But tactically, you can see what he's trying to do. You'll know him more than me from his time at Leicester, but he's a Premier League coach, and you can see it for the way he sets up his teams.
For Crystal Palace going into the game, there were 4 teams that were yet to win a game, and they were one of them. But the beat Spurs, I've only seen the highlights of that. What was it like?
I thought it was pretty even, but the goal that Mateta scored in terms of the flick from Eze was like incredible, wasn't it? The little flick around the corner, Micah. I'm sure you've seen the goal, yeah. So that would be a huge win for Crystal Palace if they were ever gonna get something. I thought it might be today after Tottenham being in Europe on Thursday and then playing an away game. They were a little bit flat. They didn't create as many chances, but yeah, well done Crystal Palace.
I think Spurs was sloppy. I think Pedro Porro gave the ball away like 20 odd times throughout the whole game. Palace pressed was a little bit more aggressive in the way they set up, and they needed that. They really did need that. I think even early doors, watching Palace, they've been in games where they should have had something or taken something out of the game. It wasn't meant to be. But yeah, it was a massive, massive result for them.
to talk about yesterday's game, we've got to start with Brentford and Ipswich. I mean, that was a bonkers football match, wasn't it? I mean, Ipswich played really well in the first half. Brentford was struggling. Ipswich go 2 up, then they get 2 goals back half time, and then obviously Brentford took the lead, and you think that's it because Ipswich went down to 10 men, and then Ipswich somehow got an equaliser, and then there was a bit of a comedy goal that made it 4-3, and then Delap had fantastic effort, and even after that in injury time that hit the post. I mean, it was a thrilling game, wasn't it?
It was a mad game, yeah. It was a great game. It was without doubt the best game and deserved to be first on Match of the Day. It had a bit of everything, but I mean, joy for Thomas Frank and his players and team at the end. Without playing, I mean, they were terrible in the first half, and Ipswich go 2 up. But the killer for them was conceding 2 in a minute or 2 just before half time and going in at 2-2 after all that good work in that first half. And a minute left. Kieran McKenna saying after the game again that there were so many positives, and if that continues, then at least they'll be competitive. But just give too many errors away, too many chances away, and we keep on saying it. It's like, if you do that, you're going to get punished, and they did.
It's very difficult. Buemo is. Do you think he's slightly underrated? I mean, I think he's got 8 goals now in 9 Premier League games this season. Wissa as well chipped in with a couple. You're smiling, Mike. Is he in your team?
No, he's not in my team.
I thought he was in your fantasy team.
I play a head-to-head league, and somebody's got him. And you know what? I was watching the scores coming in yesterday as I was relaxing at home, and I saw the game, and I saw Mbeumo only scored 1 goal. I went downstairs, I came back up, and it said Mbeumo. I was honestly, I nearly threw everything in my room. I was like a spoiled little kid. I was absolutely raging, and it's just lost me my game this week. Devastating.
Oh dear, more bad news for Micah. I mean, have they turned that Wissa goal and given it him yet? I mean,
not yet. No. The props haven't listened to you on Match of the Day yet.
That's his goal. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, it's got real spoilers doing
I'm
that.
with you. There's no way that should be taken off him.
No.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Taking it off him, yeah.
Yeah, but they've done really well in terms of the way they've scored so many goals, especially when you think of the fact that, Tony's gone. He was a great penalty taker, and it looks like Mbeumo, it's kind of similar technique. He sort of looks at the keeper and knocks him in. So he might have learnt from Ivan Toney, who knows? Yeah. The other thrilling one, well, actually there was 4 games yesterday where there were goals scored in injury time that turned the result. One of those, of course, was Wolves. They were 2 down, weren't they? With just a couple of minutes to go, and managed to turn it over. That might be a kind of seminal moment for Wolves this season. Certainly, producer John is hoping so. Our Wolves fan.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I said it last night, Gary, didn't I, on Match of the Day, that you're 2-0 down and you're still fighting and running around for your manager, then that in itself is a really good thing. So he's still got them on side. So, and 88 minutes to get to be 2 down and then go and get a point. I mean, it was bloody awful for Brighton the way they went 4v1 and gave the ball away for Wolves to go and attack. But so that, you're right. With the fixtures now coming up for Wolves, that could be a huge point for them.
Quick shout out to Welbeck. He's on fire, isn't
amazing.
he?
Because he limped off, didn't he, with a back injury last week. And we were worried about it might be something serious, but obviously it wasn't. But guys, he's probably having to. It's a little bit like Chris Wood, isn't it? In many ways, the fact he's having a kind of. That's sort of the latter stages of his career, dare we say? Definitely, but he's banging them in like probably never before.
Just that football intelligence, isn't it? It's just because I played with Wells at England, and I think I just missed him at the 21s, and he was never really a prolific goal scorer, but he was very good at everything. Could hold up the ball, could pass it wide, he was good in the air. He just needed to be a bit more prolific in front of goal, and I think this season is showing his worth and his experience and his know-how, for the time he's spent in the Premier League. So fair play to him.
Yeah, like a fine wine.
It pains me to do this, but I have to give some credit to Nottingham Forest, who beat my team quite comfortably, I thought, on Friday night. And they played really well. I mean, they're going so well. I don't think any of us envisaged them being this high in the table. But, reluctant praise I've got to give a little bit to Nottingham Forest, Al.
No, absolutely. I would agree that no one had them to be where they are at this time. They're playing well. They're full of confidence, and they've got someone who, again, is in the form of his life in term in front of goal, Chris Wood. I mean, everything he seems to be touching is going in. I loved his finish where he had his back to goal and he took the touch with his left foot and had this turned on the swivel and curled it in with his right foot. It was a brilliant finish. So when you've got someone who's read out in front of goal, you've got a chance.
Yeah. I can't say I enjoyed it, but it was very good.
Leicester, Gas, you worried about them?
Well, I did win the last two games prior to this, but of course you always worry about your own team, don't you? And I suppose at the start of the season, the main thing we'd hope at Leicester is to stay up. At the moment, they're in okay shape. They're not doing too badly, but fingers crossed that they return to form. I know you've got match of the day to do tonight because we're doing this on Sunday evening. Alan, you're in the back of a car, so but I do want to talk about El Clásico, which we had on last night, Alan. We were watching it, which was kind of slightly mad again with Barcelona's incredible high line, but it seems to work. Before we go on to the actual game itself, though, I think for a spell now, the Clásico wasn't quite the thing perhaps it's been most of the time, which is basically it's the club game, the biggest club game in world football, I think. And for the last few years, perhaps not so much. But I think now with Lamine Yamal and Mbappe joining Real Madrid and Bellingham and all these incredible youngsters that Barcelona have discovered, I think it's it's a monster game, isn't it?
Why can't everyone see it? Why is it not for everyone to see it?
It's rights issues, isn't it? It's rights issues. I don't think anyone's paid enough money for it or something this season. But we managed to get a feed at the BBC, which was. Yeah. I mean, it was a crazy game. I mean, Lamine Yamal. I mean, he's now the youngest. To add to all the other things, he's now the youngest player to ever score in a Clásico. I think they said it was 17 years and 105 days. I might not be exactly accurate with that, but it's more or less. I mean, remarkable. 2 goals for Lewandowski. But in the first half, Real Madrid had 1 or 2 really good chances, a couple of disallowed goals for offside. The high line. I just think it's interesting watching Real Madrid play at the moment because clearly they've got probably the best 2 left-sided forwards in world football, but neither of them at the moment are playing in that position because they're kind of, I think they're shuffling around. They're playing 2 up top, more or less playing a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-1-2 with perhaps Bellingham playing more as a 10. But I don't know. It's a different game playing with your back to goal and trying to make runs and beat offside traps. And at the minute, it's not quite working for them.
Mbappe especially, he got caught offside so many times, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to, especially with his pace. I'm thinking, why are you going so early for? You don't have to go that early.
7 times he's got.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Just pause for a second or 2. You'll still get in.
I mean, he's as quick as anyone anyway, so you don't need to go too early. But he's intelligent enough a footballer to learn from that, I would say. But what about these? I mean, it's almost a youth team that Barcelona put out against them. I mean, you've got Fermin Lopez, 21, Lamine Yamal, 17, Pedri, 21, Casado, 21, Baldi, 21, Kubarsi, who plays central defender, at 17. I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? I mean, to go to the Bernabeu and win 4-0.
Did you see Lamal's celebration as well? Just to calm. That is ridiculous.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. He did a bit of a Ronaldo celebration, and he also did Vinicius Junior's celebration. He's got a bit of shithousery in him as well at 17. Oh, dearie me.
That's fabulous.
It's great to see. Fantastic game. If you can find the highlights somewhere, I'd try and watch that. A bit of a recommendation there. But that's it for today's episode. Alan, you can, close your eyes now in the back of that car you're in.
I will do.
And Micah, have a good match of the day. What's your main analysis you're doing this evening?
I'm going to look at Chelsea and Cole Palmer. I mean, he's just a wonderful player, isn't he? But I want to look to how he receives the ball, because when you talk about players, you talk about, they're great, but what the team are doing to allow him to get the space to do what he needs to do. That's what I want to look at today. And then Arsenal, probably that Saka-Robertson first half battle. I think they really look to play down that right-hand side, and the difference between probably the first half and the second half.
What time you're on, I'll make sure I tune in so I can just go to sleep.
Not too late, I hope. Not too late, I hope, Micah. That's it for today's episode of The Rest is Football. We'll be back on Wednesday with our question and answer episode. Don't forget, the best way to get your questions in for us is at therestisfootball.com. Have a great week, everyone. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Have a great week.